I came home for New Year's. Flight delayed, bags heavy, heart soft. I had pictured noise spilling out the door before I even turned the key, music humming, food warming on the stove, voices overlapping, laughter bouncing off the walls. Instead, I stepped into a house that felt hollowed out. No music, no chatter, just the hum of the refrigerator and the scrape of a chair. And there he was. My father sat alone at the kitchen table in his old cardigan, the one with the frayed cuffs, shoulders slumped like gravity had finally won. His hands trembled as he lifted a dry sandwich to his mouth, chewing slowly like every bite was something to endure instead of enjoy. On the table beside him lay a folded piece of paper, 6 words written without care, without signatures, without shame. "We used your money, New York. Take care of him." No names, no apology, just an order disguised as honesty, a confession wrapped in entitlement. Something inside me split wide open. My name is Alyssa, and wherever you're watching from, stay with me for this part. Have you ever looked at the person who raised you and suddenly realized they were the leftover responsibility in someone else's vacation? I crouched down beside him, brushing crumbs from his lap like he was a child and I was the adult now. "Did they tell you?" I asked softly. He shook his head, eyes fixed on nothing. "They said we'd all go together." Then his voice cracked. "They didn't wait. They took the money you sent, the money meant for all of us." I felt my throat tighten. That money wasn't just for plane tickets or hotels. It was for one good memory, one clean slate, a reset after years of rushed dinners, missed calls, and promises that never quite landed. And instead, they left him here like a task, like something inconvenient handed off to the daughter who always showed up. That night, I tucked him into bed, brewed tea he barely touched, sat beside him and held his hand until his breathing slowed. It felt backwards, like time had folded in on itself, and in that quiet room, I made myself a promise. They were not getting away with this. Because this wasn't just betrayal, it was abandonment dressed up as family, and they assumed I would swallow it like I always did. 3 days later, the knock came. Hard, urgent, desperate. I opened the door, and there they were. My mother, my sister Hannah, my brother-in-law Brandon, coats half on, makeup smeared, eyes wide like panic had chased them all the way here. "Alyssa," Mom breathed, like saying my name would fix it. "We need help. Something's wrong." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, steady. "Oh, I know something's happened," I said, and for once I wasn't the one left behind. They looked wrecked, faces chapped from the cold, lips split, eyes red not from grief but from guilt that arrived too late. Mom clutched her designer bag like it still had power. Hannah wouldn't meet my eyes. Brandon stood behind them, stiff, like a statue already cracking. "Alyssa," Mom tried again. "Please, let us in." I didn't move. "You left Dad with a sandwich and a note," I said evenly. "But sure, let's pretend manners matter now." "Allie, we didn't know he'd—" Hannah started. "Didn't know he'd notice?" I cut in. "Didn't know he'd sit alone in silence while you drank cocktails under a skyline he paid for?" I watched them flinch. Good. I stepped back and opened the door just enough. Not kindness, curiosity. They shuffled inside, dragging cold air and shame behind them. "We didn't spend everything," Brandon muttered. "No," I replied flatly. "You left enough for bread and mustard. How generous." My mother sank into a chair. "We thought you wouldn't come," she said. "You never do." That one landed deep, because I always came. Every funeral, every emergency, every forgotten birthday I remembered for them. They only noticed when it suited them. "You've taken advantage of me the last time," I said. Brandon opened his mouth, but I cut him off. I checked the account, every dollar, every charge, down to the spa receipt, Hannah. My sister buried her face in her hands. That's when Mom finally broke. "He sell." My stomach dropped. "What?" "2 days ago," she whispered. "In the kitchen. No one was there. He hit his head.
He's in the hospital." Rage iced over instantly. "You left him? Then he fell, and now you're here." Hannah sobbed. "We didn't think he'd be alone that long." "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't think." I opened the door again. "Go, before I throw every receipt of your betrayal in your faces." "Alyssa," Mom pleaded, "I'll take care of him like I always do." And as they stumbled back into the cold, it hit me. I wasn't furious because they left. I was furious because they expected forgiveness before an apology, and they still didn't understand. I don't break anymore. I break back. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and quiet. Dad lay pale and bruised, hooked to fluids, smaller than I remembered. The nurse said he hadn't asked for anyone, just muttered 2 words in his sleep. She didn't say them, but I knew. I knew they'd fail him the moment they boarded that flight. I sat beside him, held his hand, and whispered that I was here, because I always was. The invisible net, the background fix, the one they relied on and never thanked. But this time, there would be consequences. By morning, he was awake. When he saw me, his eyes filled with shame instead of relief. "They left," he rasped. "I know. I didn't want you to see me like that. But you knew I would," I said gently, "because they never come back when it matters." He tried to sit up. I helped him, adjusting the pillows like muscle memory. "They drained everything," he said. "Vacation fund, emergency savings, even the joint account." I nodded. "They left you with a sandwich and a goodbye." His lip trembled. "I let them take too much." "No," I corrected. "You gave them too much." And something in his face finally shifted, like clarity hurt more than the fall. That night, I stayed in the hospital room with my laptop open and my phone buzzing. I was done being the quiet caretaker. I filed fraud claims, froze shared accounts, flagged transactions, canceled access. Then I called my attorney. "Draft the documents," I said. "Power of attorney, sole financial control. Cut them out." The next day, Hannah called, furious. "Our cards aren't working. The rent bounced." "Good," I replied. "Must be hard without someone else's money." "You can't do this. We're family." "Family by blood," I said calmly, "not by behavior." She hung up. I smiled. They thought I'd forgive like before. They forgot. This time, I'm keeping score. By week's end, they were everywhere. Missed calls, voicemails, emails labeled "Urgent, please, Alyssa," and, my favorite, "You're being cruel." Cruel was leaving your father alone with a weak heart and half a sandwich. Cruel was draining accounts under the lie of bonding. Cruel was assuming I wouldn't notice because I never complained. Now there was no access, no emergency wires, no me. Mom texted, "We made a mistake. We just wanted to feel special again." I didn't reply. I sat beside Dad while the doctor explained discharge plans. He was healing slowly, quietly, asking for nothing but me. "I've been watching you," he said softly one morning. I smirked. "Impressed by my revenge arc?" He chuckled, then turned serious. "No, ashamed." I looked at him. "You let them bleed me dry because it was easier to see me as strong than see them as selfish." He nodded. "I didn't protect you. You protected the loud ones." That was the truth. No anger, just clarity. Later that night, Brandon sent a voice memo. "Please, Alyssa, we're behind on everything. Hannah might lose her job. Your mom's card was declined at the pharmacy. We were greedy. Please don't let us drown." I listened twice, then forwarded it to my lawyer, attached it to the claim, admission on record. They called me cold after that. The truth was simpler. I was done setting myself on fire to keep them warm. That weekend, Maya, the neighbor who used to babysit me, brought over a casserole and whispered, "People are saying you froze your own family." I smiled. "No, I just finally believed they weren't mine. Blood makes you related. Betrayal makes you certain." By the second week, they started showing up in person. I was hauling groceries up the porch steps when I saw Hannah pacing by the front gate, hood pulled low, face hollow. She spotted me and rushed forward. "Alyssa, wait, please." I didn't stop walking. She caught up anyway, breath hitching. I know I don't deserve to be here, but Mom's not well. She hasn't slept. She keeps asking about Dad. Funny, I said, unlocking the door. She didn't ask about him when she was halfway through a Broadway matinee. She winced, like the truth stung worse than a slap. We thought— Don't, I cut her off. Don't tell me what you thought. Tell me what you did. She blinked fast. We left. We took the money. We said we'd be back in 2 days, but extended the trip without telling anyone. We used her name to upgrade the hotel. We ignored his calls. There it was. Confession, but not apology. She wiped her eyes. It was stupid, reckless, but we didn't mean for him to get hurt. No, I said, voice low. You meant for me not to find out. She opened her mouth, but I shook my head. You've always been good at escaping consequences, Hannah, but this time they're at your front door and no one's answering for you. I'm trying, she whispered. Try harder, I said, and stepped inside. That night, Dad and I sat in the living room watching the fireplace crackle like it was exhaling years. Your sister came by, he said. I know. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. She looked like me, I replied. The version of me you ignored when she was paying all your bills. He didn't argue because he couldn't. He finally saw the weight I'd carried without asking for applause. I should have protected you from all of this, he said, almost to himself. But you didn't, I replied, and I stopped waiting. The next morning, a letter slid under my door. In my mother's handwriting, a shaky note that read, I was a terrible mother to you. I used you. I let them worship your sister and starve you of love. I don't want money. I want peace. Please teach me how to make this right. I folded it, tucked it away, because forgiveness wasn't something I gave out anymore. It was something they had to build brick by brick alone. For once, I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty, but clarity. They needed to sit in the silence they created. They needed to feel the weight of what it meant when the daughter they never valued disappeared from their safety net. But something strange happened that week. Dad began to heal faster. He was still stiff, still sore, but lighter. He started reading again, watching documentaries, smiling even. You seem better, I told him as we made tea one afternoon. I am, he said, because I'm not pretending anymore. I turned to him. What do you mean? He looked down at his hands, ashamed but open. All these years I let them make you the villain because it was easier to believe their flattery than admit I failed as a father. I said nothing, because what you say to a man who let your worth be measured by how little you complained. He continued, you never once asked for anything, just gave, and I let them call you cold for setting boundaries. I let them take until you were empty and then asked you why you looked tired. His voice broke. I don't deserve you. No, I said quietly, you don't. He nodded. No protest, no excuses, just the quiet weight of truth. That evening, I opened my laptop, logged into the fund they'd siphoned, the one I built from late-night consulting jobs and saved bonuses. They never noticed. It was nearly gone.
But I wasn't. I drafted 3 certified letters, one to Hannah, one to Mom, one to Brandon, each with a single-page contract. If you want peace, earn it. Repay what you took. Monthly installments. No interest, no contact until the balance is cleared. Then and only then we talk. Aaron watched as I sealed the envelopes. You sure about this? He asked. I don't need their guilt, I said, but I won't let them walk away clean. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire, it's paperwork. It's boundaries they can't sweet-talk past. And when they opened those letters, they'd realized the debt they owed wasn't just financial, it was emotional. And this time, I wasn't the one footing the bill. The first payment arrived 2 days later. A trembling $50 transfer from Hannah's account labeled for January. I'll send more next week, I promise. It wasn't the amount that mattered. It was the fact that she pressed send without calling me first. No sob story, no manipulation, just silent effort. The next morning, Brandon emailed a copy of his paycheck stub at a note. I'm picking up weekend shifts. We'll pay this off. We should have done better. Mom, though, was quiet. No payment, no message, just the memory of her handwriting, the apology I still hadn't answered. Dad was the one who broke the silence. "She's scared of you," he said one night as we sorted through the stack of hospital bills. "Your mother?" I scoffed. "She should be." "Not because you're cruel," he said, "but because you changed. You stopped needing her approval. That terrifies her." I looked at him. "Do you still love her?" He nodded. "Yes, but I love her with my eyes open now." That hit harder than I expected, because for years I had loved them all with my eyes closed, and it had cost me everything. That weekend, I drove Dad to his favorite park, the one with the wooden benches and the tiny ducks that always gathered near the bridge. We sat in silence, the kind that doesn't ache anymore, and he turned to me, his voice soft. "I was wrong to let them drain you." I didn't answer because he'd said it before, but this time he pulled something from his coat pocket, a check folded neatly, signed over to me. "It's not everything," he said, "but it's mine, not theirs. I cashed out my retirement early. I want you to have it." "I don't need it," I said quietly. "I know," he replied, "but I do. I need to give back what I can." And just like that, I realized he wasn't trying to buy forgiveness. He was trying to be better. That night, I wired the money into an account labeled Restart. Not for them, for me. Because I wasn't just closing chapters, I was building the ending I deserved. And all that was left was one last visit, one final reckoning with my mother. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up quietly, deliberately, outside the apartment they downgraded to after I froze the accounts. The curtains were drawn, the lights were dim, the golden glow of her old world was gone. She opened the door slowly, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. Her hair was pulled back, no makeup, no designer scarf hiding the lines on her face, just a woman stripped bare of excuses. "Alyssa," she breathed, "you came." I nodded. "This isn't a reconciliation. I know. I'm not here for closure. I wouldn't ask. I'm here to say something I never said before," I told her. "Something I wish I'd screamed the night you left Dad, with a note and a sandwich." She lowered her gaze. "You taught me that love was a transaction, that if I kept giving, I'd eventually be enough," I said. "But I finally learned. I never had to earn your love. I just had to stop needing it." She blinked back tears. "But I didn't soften. You left a man you claimed to love because a photo under the Times Square ball mattered more than keeping a promise. You used my money, my loyalty, my silence, and now you want grace?" She nodded slowly, a single tear falling. "I don't deserve it." "No," I said, "you don't." She reached into the drawer and handed me an envelope. Inside, a check for $3,000. "My savings," she whispered. "I've been putting a little away each month. I know it's not enough." I tucked it back in and slid it across the table. "You'll pay me in full, just like the others." She closed her eyes and nodded. I stood, ready to leave, but then she looked up. "Do you hate me?" I paused. "No," I said. "I outgrew you, and that hurt her more than anything I could have screamed." Outside, the air was sharp and alive. Aaron was waiting in the car, engine humming softly. As I slid into the passenger seat, he asked, "How do you feel?" I smiled. Clean. Because this wasn't just revenge, it was repair. Of boundaries, of worth, of self. And when I looked back at the building fading behind us, I felt nothing. Not rage, not longing, just peace. Because for the first time in my life, they didn't know me anymore. They paid for what they broke, and I finally got to keep what mattered.